In the south of the United States, nestled between the edge of the Gulf of Mexico and the lush marshlands of Louisiana, there's a magical little town called Bayberry Shores. It's a place where thick vines creep over old wooden fences and moss hangs like lace from the trees. The air is warm, full of the smell of salt, sunshine, and far-off barbecues, and the beaches stretch wide and soft, like a giant sun-bleached blanket. Bayberry Shores is a town painted in color. The houses are all kinds of bright, turquoise, cherry red, daffodil yellow, and bubblegum pink. Many of the porches still have white rocking chairs and swinging benches, and the windows are framed with shutters in blues and greens. People here live slow, happy lives, with music playing from radios on front steps, and kids riding their bikes barefoot until the sun dips below the sea. And just like the people, the ocean here is gentle. The waves roll in like lullabies, brushing the sandy shore with the soft, foamy fingers. Early in the morning, when the sky is pink and gold, the water is so clear, you can see tiny fish darting inside the waves. They flash silver like coins before disappearing with the surf. Behind the beach is a tangle of palm trees and cypress, and the ground changes from sand to red clay that stains your toes when you walk barefoot. The air is rich with the smell of crushed magnolia petals, roasting peanuts, and sometimes the smoky sweetness of burnt sugar from a candy stand near the pier. And if you were to visit Bayberry Shores, you'd see something else too. Dozens of dogs. Some live with families, others roam free, trotting from the marshes to the sea and back again. Some are shaggy, some sleek, but they all know their way around the neighborhood. One dog, though, was different from all the others. His name was Beau. Beau was big, bigger than most street dogs. His fur was sandy beige, and his eyes were bright, crystal blue, like the clearest piece of sky. His ears stood tall, and his legs were long, like he was meant to run great distances. But what made him truly stand out was the way he carried himself. Quiet, calm, like he knew something nobody else did. During the day, Beau napped under his favorite palm tree near the edge of the beach, where the breeze was coolest and the ground was softest. If he wasn't there, you might find him wandering the cornfields behind the town, where the earth was dry and cracked and smelled like summer. The women working in the fields, wearing wide-brimmed hats and long dresses, would always greet him with a smile. He wagged his tail proudly whenever they did. At night, Beau became the town's silent guardian. He padded through the dirt roads, nosed around back porches, and checked every garden and fence post like a sheriff on his rounds. If someone had left out scraps, maybe cornbread or a slice of grilled chicken, he'd eat politely, tail wagging in thanks. Sometimes, when the tide was low, he'd trot down to the beach and dig in the wet sand for ghost crabs, his paws moving fast like a dancer's. Every morning, Beau would sit near the little wooden church that faced the sea. He didn't understand the words of the prayers whispered there, but he liked the rhythm of the man's voice, and he always got a biscuit or two when the man was done. Beau was content, but sometimes, especially when the stars came out and the air smelled like jasmine, he wondered. He wondered what it would feel like to belong, to have someone who ran beside him, played with him, curled up with him under the stars. One evening, just as the sky turned to lavender and the last sunbeam flickered on the water, Beau did something strange. He slept, not just a nap. He curled up under his tree and drifted into a deep, dreamy sleep. Around him, the other street dogs barked and bounded, chasing shadows and moths. But Beau didn't hear them. In his dream, he was running not on land, but across a path made of water. It sparkled beneath his feet like glass, and he ran toward something shimmering in the distance. No matter how fast he ran, the thing always seemed just out of reach. But Beau didn't mind. He felt joyful, strong, alive. Then, just as he was about to reach the glittering light, he heard a voice, a real voice. It said his name, Beau. He awoke with a jolt. Night had fallen. Stars blinked above him, and the town had grown quiet. The palm leaves rustled softly, and the sea hummed in the distance. Beau looked around. No one was there, but something inside his chest, right in the middle, where his heart beat strong, pulled him forward. It wasn't a sound or a smell, but a feeling, a tug, like something invisible was calling him. He stood, stretched, and began to walk through the quiet streets of Bayberry Shores, past porches lit by bug zappers and backyards strung with fairy lights. Beau followed the feeling. It pulled him across the cornfields, under the rustling oak trees, past the gas station where the raccoons liked to dig in the trash. It guided him to the boardwalk, where the air turned salty and the wood creaked beneath his paws. Then he reached the beach. It was low tide, and the sea had pulled far away from the shore, leaving shallow pools behind that glowed with starlight. The sand shimmered like silver silk, and the sea breeze danced around him. That's when he saw it. A small hill of sand rising from the puddles like an island, and on top of that hill stood a dog. But not just any dog. She was blue. Her fur was the color of the sky just before sunrise, a deep, soft blue that seemed to shimmer like moonlight on water. Her eyes were the same bright blue as Beau's, and one patch of white curled over her left eye like a pearl. Beau's heart skipped. Without thinking, he bounded toward her, paws flying over the sand. And when she saw him, her tail began to wag gently, as if she'd been waiting for him all along. They touched noses. "My name's Ronnie," she said, her voice soft and strange and sweet. "I came from the stars, but I want to be a real dog. I just don't know how." Beau's tail wagged faster. He gave a happy bark and licked her ear. "I'll teach you," he said. Ronnie blinked, her shimmering eyes wide. "You will?" But Beau didn't answer. Instead, he took off across the beach with a joyful yelp, and Ronnie followed, her paws barely making a sound on the sand. They ran all the way to town. First, he taught her how to sniff for dinner, leftover fish tacos and burger buns behind the boardwalk cafe. Then he showed her how to bark at shadows and chase seagulls that never really cared. They rolled in the grass and darted through firefly clouds. Ronnie learned to dig for moles and dig just because. She learned that mud puddles are best when you splash right into them, and that the smell of roasted peanuts is always worth investigating. Beau showed her how to be wild and happy and free. They ran and played until the sky began to lighten. But just as the first sun ray touched the horizon, something changed. Ronnie's paws began to fade. Her blue fur shimmered, then flickered like a candle in the wind. She looked down in panic. "I'm fading," she whispered. Beau stared. His heart thudded. He couldn't lose her, not now. "Come with me," he barked. They raced back to the beach, past the boardwalk, past the church, all the way to the lone palm tree standing tall at the edge of the sea. It was an old tree, older than the town, with red ribbons tied around its trunk and shells buried at its roots. The people of Bayberry said it was special, that it held magic in its wood. Beau sat in front of it and howled. The night held still. Then a silvery mist drifted from the tree, curling through the air like breath in winter. It smelled like starlight and coconut. Beau sniffed and understood. She has to rest on the earth, he told himself. So he dug, and Ronnie dug too, right beside him. They dug until there was a small, soft hollow in the sand. Ronnie curled up in it, her glowing fur dimming, her eyes closing. Beau covered her with sand, gentle and slow, until only the soft rise of her body remained. Then he lay down beside her and waited. He waited for 3 days and 3 nights, never leaving her side. And on the 4th night, when the stars shone brightest and the sea hummed low like a lullaby, the sand moved. The night was still when the sand began to shift. Beau's ears twitched. He'd been lying beside the soft hump for what felt like forever, his fur dusted with red clay, his tail unmoving, his heart thudding with hope and fear. The tide had never reached them, not once. The stars had come and gone. The wind had rustled and stilled. But Beau had not left. Now, something was happening. The sand atop the small hill trembled, but just a little. Then again, Beau stood, ears perked, paws firm on the damp earth. A tail poked out, thin and wagging. It was not shimmering blue anymore, but a warm beige with the spots of brown and caramel, just like the sand of Bayberry Shores. One paw followed, then another, and slowly, as the stars blinked overhead, Ronnie emerged. Her fur was still long and a bit wavy, but it no longer shimmered like moonlight. Now it was earthly, warm and real, with smudges of dark brown on her ears and one big patch over her back. Her eyes, though, those eyes hadn't changed. They were still the same clear blue, filled with light and wonder. She looked up at Beau, blinking sleepily. "I'm here," she whispered. Beau wagged his tail so hard he kicked up dust. He licked her nose and barked once, short, joyful, sharp. Ronnie stood, shook the sand from her coat, and leaped into a clumsy circle. Then she tackled Beau into the sand, both of them tumbling and laughing in their doggy way, tails high, mouths open in wide, happy grins. From that moment on, they were never apart. They spent their days exploring every corner of Bayberry Shores together. The town became their playground, their kingdom. Ronnie, now a real dog, was endlessly curious. She wanted to sniff every hydrant, every trash can, every strange patch of grass. She chased butterflies like they were secrets floating on the wind, and she barked at mail trucks like they were dragons. Beau showed her everything he knew, how to charm the bakery owner into giving them scraps of corn muffins, how to slip into the town square unnoticed, and which porches left bowls of water out for strays. Their favorite spot was still the beach. Every morning before the people came out with their towels and coolers, Beau and Ronnie would race across the damp sand, dodging driftwood and chasing seagulls. Ronnie loved to dig, especially where the ghost crabs hid. She was terrible at catching them, but she didn't mind. Beau would bark encouragement, even if he secretly thought her technique was terrible. At night they curled up together under the palm tree, the same one that had answered Beau's howl. It had become their place, their shelter. They'd watch the stars blink into view and listen to the wind in the grass. Beau felt calm there, safe, happy. But Bayberry Shores wasn't just fun and games. There was something else, something beginning to stir. It started on a strange morning, about a week after Ronnie had returned from her deep sleep. The beach smelled different, not like salt and fish and driftwood, but something sharp, sour. It prickled Beau's nose in a way he didn't like. Ronnie smelled it too. "What is that?" she asked, her nose twitching. Beau didn't answer. He was already running toward the source. They followed the scent trail down the beach and through the tall reeds at the edge of the marsh. There, hidden behind a wall of thick vines and broken fence posts, was an old house. It looked like it had been abandoned for years. Windows boarded up, porch sagging, roof patched with tin. But the smell was strongest here. Beau padded forward, slow, cautious. Ronnie followed close behind, her ears flat. And then they heard it. A sound, not quite a growl, not quite a bark. Low and broken, like something was in pain. Beau pushed his nose through a crack in the fence. Inside the backyard was another dog, but this one didn't look right. Its fur was matted and thin, and its eyes were cloudy like smoke in water. It walked strangely, almost like it was limping, but Beau could see no wound. When it moved, its limbs didn't bend the way they should. It was sniffing at the ground, but not like a normal dog would. It was more like it was searching, blind. Ronnie leaned close. What's wrong with him? Beau didn't know, but he knew they had to get out of there. They backed away, careful not to rustle the reeds. Once they were far enough, they ran. Back to the beach, back to the breeze, back to the clean scent of salt and sunshine. What was that? Ronnie asked again, when they had caught their breath. I don't know, Beau said, but it's not just that one. And he was right. That night, as they made their rounds through town, Beau and Ronnie began to notice more strange things. Trash cans knocked over, not in the messy way of hungry raccoons, but neat, like something was examining them. Scratch marks on doors too high for a normal dog. A cat's scent trail suddenly cut off. And the smell, that sour, sharp smell, lingered everywhere they went. The dogs of Bayberry Shores began acting nervous. They barked more, slept less. The little ones stayed close to their owners, and even the big strays started sticking to the well-lit streets. Something was coming, and Beau could feel it. It tugged at that same place in his chest, the same place that had pulled him toward Ronnie. But this time, it wasn't warm. It wasn't good. It was like a warning bell, quietly ringing. That night, when the wind picked up and clouds rolled over the stars, Beau sat under the palm tree with Ronnie and watched the sea. I think something bad is about to happen, he said softly. Ronnie didn't say anything for a moment. Then she rested her head against his shoulder. Then we'll face it together. And just like that, a plan began to form. Tomorrow they would begin gathering the other dogs. They would find out what was stalking Bayberry Shores, and they would protect the place and the people they had come to love. Together, the wind was different the next morning. It whipped through Bayberry Shores in short, nervous gusts, carrying sand into corners and shaking the shutters of every old beach house. The seagulls flew lower than usual, circling the shoreline like they were waiting for something. Even the crickets had stopped their chirping, as if the whole town was holding its breath. Beau and Ronnie stood on the highest dune overlooking the beach. The sunrise behind them was dull and gray, as though the sky had forgotten how to glow. This is the day, Beau said. Ronnie nodded, her ears pinned back against the breeze. We gather the dogs. They began in the places Beau knew best. First, old Penny, an ancient golden retriever who lived under the boardwalk and only came out for fish scraps. Then Scooter and Jazz, two quick-footed mutts who roamed the rooftops and alleys like shadows. Down by the bait shop they found Lenny, a barrel-chested bulldog who didn't like much of anything, but loved to bark. Dog by dog, they came. Even the house dogs, ones who usually stayed indoors, began watching from porches and windows, their eyes wide, their bodies tense. "We've all felt it," said Penny in her soft, gravelly voice. "Something's wrong." "I saw a shadow last night," said Jazz. "It moved like a dog, but it didn't sound like one." Beau stood in the middle of them all, his beige fur streaked with sand, his blue eyes steady. "There's something strange in the marshes," he told them. "We saw it. It's sick or broken, but it's not alone. There are others. We can feel them." The dogs looked around at one another, unsure. "What do we do?" asked Lenny. Ronnie stepped forward. "We protect the town." There was a moment of silence. Then, slowly, tails began to rise. Heads lifted. One by one, the dogs nodded. It was time. Beau broke them into patrol groups. Ronnie and Jazz took the northern paths through the pine woods. Penny and the young house dogs stayed near the town square to watch the porches and people. Beau and Lenny took the marshlands, where the smell had first begun. By dusk, the air had grown thick and wet. Fog rolled in from the ocean, blanketing the roads and swallowing the light. The street lamps flickered, and the power lines buzzed. Beau's paws sank into the soft earth of the marsh as he and Lenny crept forward, following the path between the reeds. The scent was stronger now, like mold and rot and something chemical. "This doesn't smell like dog," Lenny whispered, his growl low. "It smells wrong." Beau didn't answer. His chest ached. That invisible tug was back, tighter, colder. Then they heard it. A sound like breathing, but too slow, too deep, wet, raspy. They turned a corner and saw them. 6 figures, dog-shaped, but not dog. Their fur hung in clumps, wet with something sticky. Their eyes glowed faintly yellow in the dark, and their movements jerky, twitching like marionettes pulled by tangled strings. One turned its head sharply. It saw Beau. For one long second, the world went still. Then the thing let out a bark, sharp and high and unnatural. The others responded with snarls and growls, mouths opening too wide, revealing rows of broken, gray teeth. "Run!" Beau growled. They ran, through the swamp, through the reeds, paws thudding against mud and water. Behind them, the creatures gave chase, crashing through branches, snapping their jaws. They made it to the cornfields before the first one caught up. Lenny turned, roaring, and slammed into it with his full weight. The thing collapsed with a sickening crunch, but then twitched and started to rise again. Beau grabbed Lenny's scruff and yanked. "Go, don't fight it, just go." They burst into the open, past a chain-link fence, and back into the edge of town. Lights from the diner flickered just ahead. As they reached the old church on the hill, Beau let out a long, loud howl, a call to arms. All across Bayberry Shores, dogs lifted their heads. They knew that sound, the call of the beach, the call of danger, the call to protect. Within minutes they were gathering, dozens of them, under the crooked palm tree by the sea. Ronnie was there, out of breath, her fur bristling. Jazz and Penny arrived next, then the others, pouring in from all directions, their eyes wide with fear, but burning with resolve. "They're not dogs," Beau said, pacing before them. "They wear dog shapes, but they're something else, something bad. They chased us all the way from the swamp," Lenny added. "And they're still coming." Penny stepped forward. "What do we do, Beau?" He looked out at the sea, its surface black and still. Then, up at the old palm tree, he remembered the mist, the spirit. "We ask for help." He approached the tree, slowly, reverently. The red paint on its trunk glowed faintly under the moonlight. He placed his paw against the bark and howled again, not loud this time, but low, like a whisper. The wind picked up, the sky opened, A shimmering mist began to rise from the tree's roots, swirling around Beau's feet, then drifting outward in curling tendrils toward the crowd of dogs. The mist touched Ronnie's nose. Her eyes widened. "I feel it," she whispered. "It's strong." Beau turned back to the crowd. "This town is ours," he said. "These people are ours. We run its roads. We sleep beneath its stars. We protect it now." The dogs raised their heads and howled. The night answered. From the marshes the dark shapes emerged, closer now, clearer in the moonlight. 7, 10, maybe more. They twitched and staggered, some crawling, some lurching, upright, like broken things. But the dogs of Bayberry Shores stood their ground. Beau moved to the front, his stance proud and steady. Ronnie stepped beside him, her tail high. The mist began to swirl faster around their legs. Beau barked once, a short, sharp command, and the dogs charged. The moment the charge began, the ground itself seemed to tremble. Dozens of paws thudded against the earth, kicking up sand and mist, as the dogs of Bayberry Shores surged forward like a single living wave. Beau was at the head, Ronnie just behind him, her eyes blazing, her legs moving fast and fearless. All around them, dogs barked and growled, their voices rising into a furious battle cry that echoed through the streets, over the dunes, and into the swamps. The creatures, those twisted, broken dog shapes, staggered to meet them, letting out sounds that were not barks, not howls, but something between a screech and a choke. Their mouths hung open too wide, and their limbs jerked unnaturally as they lunged toward the charging pack. The two sides collided. It was chaos. Beau slammed into one of the shadow dogs, knocking it off its feet. Up close, it smelled like mildew and burned rubber. Its eyes glowed yellow, but dimmer now, uncertain. Beau growled and snapped, and the creature recoiled, stumbling backward into the sand. Next to him, Ronnie leapt over a twisted shape and landed on another, pinning it down. Her teeth found its shoulder. It wasn't flesh. Not exactly. It felt spongy, cold, like wet paper soaked in oil. The creature screeched and dissolved into ash-like dust, vanishing beneath her paws. "They're weak in the light," Ronnie barked. "Push them back, toward the sea." The others heard her. Jazz, quick as ever, darted through the chaos, barking out directions. "Don't let them circle behind you. Stay together. Light, use the light." Street lights flickered above them as the fog swirled and pulsed. The mist from the old palm tree was spreading farther now. Beau could see it curling through alleyways, snaking down the boardwalk, glowing faintly under the moon. Wherever it touched the ground, the creatures faltered. Their movements grew sluggish, their eyes dimmer. One of the larger monsters, twice Beau's size, lunged forward, charging through the mist, like it didn't care. Its growl was low and guttural, like a dying engine. It struck Lenny hard, knocking the bulldog to the ground. Beau didn't hesitate. He bounded over, grabbed the creature by the hind leg, and yanked with all his strength. The beast twisted around and tried to snap at him, but Beau was too fast. He leapt up and barked into its face, loud, furious, a sound from deep in his chest. The creature froze. The mist surged. Then, with a strange shudder, the creature began to fall apart. Its form cracked like dry earth, splitting down the middle and blowing away in the wind like ashes. Lenny got to his feet, panting. "Thanks," he grunted. "Don't thank me yet," Beau said. "There's more coming." He was right. From the edge of the marsh, new figures were emerging. These were smaller, quicker, and they slithered low to the ground. Their eyes blinked in unison, and their bodies twitched like they were pulled by strings. Dozens of them. "We can't hold the town forever," Jazz called out, leaping onto a barrel for a better view. "There's too many." Ronnie looked at Beau, her eyes fierce. "We don't have to hold it forever," she said. "Just until sunrise." Beau understood instantly. The light, the real light, not street lamps or mist. The sun. "Back to the beach," he barked. "Everyone, to the sea." The dogs broke away from the street and sprinted down the old boardwalk, paws thudding against the wood. The creatures shrieked and followed, but they stumbled more now, slowed by the mist, confused by the air thick with dog scent and courage. The beach was wide and silver under the moon. The tide was lower than ever, the wet sand stretched far and flat. Beau ran to the edge of it and turned to face the town. Behind him, the ocean breathed softly. The dogs formed a line, 20, 30, maybe more. Their eyes glowed with determination. Some were bleeding, some limping, but none had left. Not one. The creatures came closer, crawling, slinking, jerking. Then, the first rays of sunlight broke over the water. It started with a single thread of gold on the horizon. Then more, fanning out, lighting the sky with soft pinks and warm oranges. The sea lit up like molten glass, and the wind carried the scent of morning, salt, grass, firewood, and hope. The light hit the beach, and the creatures screamed. They twisted in agony, writhing against the brightness. One by one, their bodies cracked and crumbled, turning to dust beneath the rising sun. They tried to flee, but there was nowhere to run. The ocean behind them, the dogs before them, and the light above. The last one dissolved into ash right at Beau's feet. Silence followed. The only sound was the gentle lap of the sea and the panting of tired dogs. Beau looked around. Ronnie stood beside him, her tail still, her chest rising and falling. Jazz was lying on his side, tongue out, grinning. Lenny had flopped into the wet sand with a groan and didn't look like he was getting up any time soon. Penny came trotting from the boardwalk, her golden fur streaked with soot, but her eyes shining. "We did it," she said. Beau didn't say anything at first. He just sat down, let the sun warm his back, and breathed. Then he turned to the others. "We did." The dogs began to cheer. They barked and howled and rolled in the sand, tails wagging wildly. Some wrestled playfully. Others just lay down and closed their eyes, letting the sun do what the mist had done. Heal them. Ronnie pressed her shoulder to Beau's and looked up at the morning sky. "They're gone," she said. "All of them." Beau nodded, "but we'll keep watching, just in case." The town would wake soon. The people would rise and make their coffee, open their windows, and step out into the streets. They wouldn't know what had happened. Not fully. Maybe they'd notice the strange dust on the ground, or the way the dogs were especially tired that morning. But they'd feel something. They'd feel safe. And that would be enough. Beau stood, stretched, and trotted back toward the palm tree. Ronnie followed. Together they lay in the soft patch of sand beneath the branches and waited for the town to rise. The morning after the battle was one of the quietest Bayberry Shores had ever known. The sea whispered against the shore, slow and steady. The breeze carried the scent of warm sand and blooming jasmine, with just a hint of rain far off on the horizon. The sky, soft and glowing, seemed to stretch forever above the peaceful little town. And under the old palm tree at the edge of the beach, 2 dogs slept side by side. Beau opened his eyes first. He stretched his legs, yawned wide, and looked over at Ronnie. She was curled up tight, her nose tucked beneath her paw, breathing deep and slow. Her coat glowed golden in the sunlight now, as though the stars she came from had left behind a piece of their light just for her. Beau watched the waves roll in. He felt a strange peace in his chest, a calmness he hadn't known he'd been missing. The town was safe, for real this time. Around mid-morning, the rest of the dogs began to gather again. Jazz arrived first, trotting down the beach like he hadn't just fought a battle for the soul of the town. "Anyone else wake up with their legs feeling like jelly?" he asked, flopping dramatically onto the sand. Penny came slowly, but proudly. She sat beside Beau with a deep sigh and looked out at the sea. "In all my years, I've never seen anything like that," she murmured. "I thought we were just beach dogs. Turns out we're warriors, too." Lenny limped over last, looking stiff, but satisfied. "Well, if anything like that ever shows up again, it better bring back up." The group laughed. Not loud, just warm and easy. Other dogs trickled in from all directions. Some brought stories. One had seen a ghost critter vanish in a sunbeam just before dawn. Another had found a strange black feather lying near the marsh, still pulsing with some kind of weird energy. A younger pup said he dreamed of the mist wrapping around him like a blanket. And yet, the mist was gone now. Completely. The old palm tree stood quiet, no glow, no swirling light. Just red paint smeared on the bark and a few yellow strings fluttering gently in the breeze. It looked ordinary now, like any tree on any beach in the south. But every dog there knew better. Beau stepped forward and looked up at the tree, then turned back to the gathered crowd. "We've been given something," he said. "A gift. A chance to protect this place. Not just once, but always." The dogs listened, silent and still. "I don't know what those creatures were or why they came," Beau continued, "but I do know one thing. They're gone because we stood together, because we didn't run, because we are more than strays or pets or wanderers." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the dogs, young and old, rough and gentle, streetwise and house-fed.